What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to Gearbox. So today, yes, you guessed it, another video with the 2022 Toyota Mk5 Supra. Last week we did the 5 things I love, and yes, we are doing the 5 things I hate. Very similar to the 5 things I love video. There are so many things that I love about this car, it was hard to narrow it down to 5 things. And in a similar note, finding 5 things that I hate about this car is pretty tough, but we're gonna try to do that today on this episode of Gearbox. Now, of course, trying to find 5 things about a brand new car, or rather a brand new car to you, that you're not exactly pleased with is pretty difficult, but no car or truck or anything is perfect. So let's go ahead and get right into it with number 1. The first thing about this car that I am really not a fan of, or I guess I'm a fan of, but it makes, I guess, owning and driving this car difficult, is how low the roof line is. Now, you might be telling yourself, John, you decided to buy a coupe, it's a sports car, it's gonna have a low roof line. Yes, you're right, but if you can see this right here, I mean, it's like halfway up my torso, and then you go ahead and get in with this weird kind of something there, and we close the door. I would say this is probably about eye angle, and you can see, I mean, here's my head against the roof, okay? It's massive on the inside, relatively speaking. The room in here is awesome, but the visibility and the overall roof line, and yes, there are some cutouts here, you know, for a helmet or whatever, small windshield, small windows, and of course that's all because of the actual body lines of the car. Yes, the roof line and the overall kind of design of this car makes it very sleek and very sporty, but that is something you're gonna have to get used to, especially if you are 6'3" like myself. Yes, I identify as a skinny, shorter person, but you know, daily driving this car, that is something you're gonna have to get used to. So if you are over, let's say, 6 feet tall, just something to keep in mind on your Mk5 Supra. For the number 2 spot on this list, we are going to talk about, I would consider it to be a hot topic with the Mk5 Supra, and that is the wind buffeting. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, when you are driving this car with the windows down, so really just this piece of glass and the driver's side, if you're over, let's call it 45, I mean, it definitely happens lower, but it becomes problematic at about 45 miles an hour. The wind buffeting you hear, and this is with both windows down, okay? It is so loud. And just like you can't even hear yourself think. Yeah, I'm sure that has something to do with the fact that, once again, there are only 2 windows that roll down, and then the wind goes in and it bounces right off of this glass here, and then it goes back, and there's just not a lot of, you know, square, or I guess cubic feet from the cabin perspective, but it's quite aggressive. Like, before I bought this car, I heard about the wind buffeting, and I'm like, there's no way it's that bad. It's that bad. Now, all that being said, there is a fix, and apparently from Amazon, it's like a $10, maybe $15 fix, and that is these little bits and pieces you put right here, and I guess it attaches with like 3M tape, but it has this little piece that sticks out right here. That simple product apparently fixes this thing 100%. Do I know how it works? Absolutely not. But that is definitely an investment that I will be making for this car, because I love, especially on a day like today, 71 degrees, South Carolina, it's February 2nd. Yeah, it's nice out, and I like to enjoy a nice day by driving a nice car. It's kind of ruined with wind buffeting noise, so we're gonna get that Amazon purchase or wherever for the number 2 spot. For the number 3 spot on this list, we are going to talk about yet another gripe of mine that obviously I understand going into buying a sports car, but it's still kind of a letdown in my mind once you actually start living with it firsthand. And for gripe number 3, we are talking about storage space. Yes, I know, I can hear all of you saying, John, it's a sports car, it's not for storage, but I do appreciate practicality. And is this car practical? Kind of, but a big reason why that's a half committal kind of is because of the lack of storage space. So going through it, you have your little hand, thing right here. You have a tiny little spot right here. Nope, we don't have a center console. That's a big one. We also have the little tray up here for wireless charging, which is not even worth talking about. And then we go around back. And yes, my trunk is cluttered, but this might be a good, I guess, representation of how little space we actually have. So in here, we have the owner's manual of the car. We have my flight bag and we have my work bag. That's it. And especially when you look at it, as far as how skinny it is, once again, this is all something that I saw before I bought the car, but I didn't really understand the actual scale of it until I was using it. Is it the biggest deal ever? Absolutely not. But it is something to keep in mind, especially if this is going to be your only car. Yeah, you might want to plan accordingly. Yes, on the passenger side, we do have a little cubby right here and a small glove compartment for things. But that's about it. So, if you're lugging around a bunch of shit, whether it's just stuff that you keep on your person every day, or you're trying to take a trip, or whatever, definitely something you're gonna wanna keep in the back of your mind as you start planning your trip. Biggest deal in the world? No, but something to point out for your Mk5 Supra. Moving on to the number 4 spot in this list, obviously going to the interior. Hello. And we are going to be talking about the steering wheel settings here. Specifically, and this is pretty damn minor. Once again, I'm kind of reaching at things to bitch about for this car. But if you look at the steering wheel, you have your cruise control on the left, and you have some of your kind of standard functions, whatever, on the right. One thing you might notice that's missing here is a music switch button. If you are driving in your car and you want to change the music for one reason or another, you either have to use the infotainment wheel or you have to go right here. Once again, similar to a lot of the previous points here, is this the biggest deal ever? No. And yes, I did get out of the car because it's not on and it's hot as shit in there and whatever. But back to the steering wheel. Is it the biggest deal ever? No. But it is nice to have controls at your fingertips. It honestly, startled is the wrong word, but took me aback. How about that? When I drove this car off the lot, of course, when you're test driving it and you're looking at it and whatever, that is not something you think of. But when you have to drive this car 2.5 hours home and simultaneously learn the car, and you realize that the only way to switch the damn music is either reaching all the way across the cabin or using the infotainment wheel, which is great, but it lags a little bit because of wireless AirPlay. It's just something that I wish was on the steering wheel. It can't be that hard to add on there from factory, so I don't know why they didn't do that, but anyway, that's gonna be it for number 4, and without further ado, let's get on to the 5th and final thing that I hate about my Mk5 Supra. And on to numero 5 on this list, we are going to be talking about something that, once again, is pretty minor, but for a guy like me, is kind of a pain in my ass, and that is these. And no, we're not necessarily talking about the wheels themselves, but we are talking about brake dust. And I understand that in this clip, you probably can't tell the brake dust on here. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it's not great. Now, the reason for this, of course, is we're running big Brembo brakes, right? You have the red calipers, Toyota Supra. Yeah, they're badass, but boy, do they kick up a shitload of brake dust. And yes, it's nice to have good braking power and it's awesome, and I'm not bitching about it at all, other than the fact that the brake dust coupled with these wheels that are not the most intricate things in the world, but they're not simple either, is a pain in my big South Carolina ass to clean. And I like to clean my cars, trucks, whatever, at least once a week. And maybe that's overkill, and maybe that's why I don't like it, but boys and girls, is it a pain in the ass? And it doesn't just fall off. Like, I need to ceramic coat these things so that way it makes my life even a little bit easier, but boy, is it tough. And it's one of those things where, you know, you wash the car and it looks great, and then after a half a day of driving it, the wheels just don't have that same shine to them and that same kind of appeal because they're essentially matted out by brake dust. And that's just, I don't know, rubs me the wrong way. I don't like it. And yes, not the biggest deal ever, and probably doesn't mean that much to most people watching this video, but to me it does annoy me. But anyway, I digress. So for the time being, guys, that is going to do it for the 5 things that I hate about my Mk5 Toyota Supra. If you have any ideas or things that you don't like about your Supra, drop them in the comment section down below. I'm sure a lot of these things will all come to a consensus on, and there are maybe some other things that don't bother me, but maybe bother you or someone else that you've seen. So regardless, be active in the comments. If you did like this video and enjoy the content we're putting out on Gearbox every single week, please give this video a big fat thumbs up. And as always, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. Until next time, peace.
留在自己那张脏乱的床，手摆好姿态对我装上了。